for himself. So we're going to see that a lot in Mark. The Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So Jesus said to the man, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of all of them. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, once again saying, we have never seen anything like this. Now,
like tiger meats.
Yeah. So how bad off is he, Gary?
A rod up through a leg, screws and bolts or something in the ankle.
Wow.
They say he's probably going to be lucky to be able to walk again.
Wow.
They didn't have to amputate.
Ugh. So Gary was talking about Tiger Woods, if folks don't know.
Yep.
All right, now we get to meet Matthew. Once again, Jesus went out beside the lake. Notice Jesus always gets his disciples by the lake, even if they're not fishermen. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. As he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, and we know that it's Matthew because Matthew is the son of Alphaeus, sitting at a tax collector's booth. Plus, he's sitting at a tax collector's booth, so we know it's Matthew. And once again, Matthew leaves behind a very lucrative career. Because remember what we found out about tax collectors in the book of Matthew, they worked for the Romans, and they could always tack on a commission to the taxes they collected for the Romans. So these guys most often tacked on a lot because they wanted to get themselves rich. And that's why the Jews hated them, because they worked for Romans and they ripped people off. And they were just kind of lumped in with the sinners. The Pharisees say, why is Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners? And this is where he tells them in verse 17, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. Jesus came to help out all the sinners, no matter who they were.
I thought I remember in one of the Gospels that Matthew was short. He was up in a tree and Jesus called him down, or maybe that was in a movie.
No, that's another tax collector, Zacchaeus. I think it's Zacchaeus, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Matthew I'm sorry to keep referencing The Chosen, but it's really a good series.
It is a good series.
And Matthew in The Chosen he's like
OCD.
He's OCD. He's a really funny character, so you guys have to watch it.
He has a guy driving through town hidden in his wagon because he's harassed walking to his...
Well, yeah, because he's ripping people off.
Right. Yeah, he has an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
There's an
issues.
app on the iPhone that you can get to watch it.
Yeah. It's a blast. Verse 18. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Okay. Fasting was required only on the Day of Atonement. But the Pharisees did it to show people how good they were, how special they were. And John's disciples, they just kind of fell in with the Pharisees. And of course, there's a certain process for fasting. You have to wear your worst clothes. You have to have your hair messed up. And Jesus told us before in Matthew, don't fast that way. When you fast, make sure no one knows that you're doing it because it's for God. So anyway, they're fasting. And the Pharisees say, well, how come John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours aren't? And Jesus says, they can't fast while I'm here with them. And he kind of ties it to the wedding. The bridegroom being Jesus in verse 19. And he says, once I'm gone, then they can fast. This is the first prediction of Jesus' death. And we see that in Isaiah, the bridegroom. Now, we know Jesus isn't against fasting because he did it for 40 days. He just doesn't want to do it as part of a show. And then he gets into the blending of Jewish traditions with Christian traditions in verse 21. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. So Jesus is saying, we're not going to blend our ideas and our thoughts with Judaism. We don't do this because the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. It's going to confuse people. No one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. So Jesus is saying, the message I have to give is going to go into new people, and then it's going to go into the Jewish people. What happens when you pour... anybody ever ferment wine or make beer or understand the process?
No.
So what happens when you're making alcohol, it gives off gases. So Jesus is saying, when you put this new wine that's going to give off gases into these old wineskins that are old and crumbly and dry, it's going to explode. Because the old wineskins just aren't flexible. So you got to put it in the new skin so it expands. So Jesus isn't just giving us some theology, he's giving us a good science lesson.
So we shouldn't go watch Moonshiners tonight.
Moonshiners.
Well, yeah, that could be dangerous. You might get shot.
Yeah.
A friend of ours, Phil Rabbit Trail, a friend of ours, Phil Bauer, his dad used to be with ATF, and he would tell us some stories about coming upon moonshiners, and it was not a good thing.
Well, they say like down some of those places you just don't want to go poking around even today
Yeah.
because
Yep.
you could end up very
Right?
dead.
You very dead. Could be meth labs too.
Yeah,
that too.
yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
another thing.
So we come back, okay, out of that trail. So one Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and his disciples walked along. They began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is sinful on the Sabbath?" Okay. Where are the disciples sinning, you guys think? Think back to our Old Testament studies.
They're working on the Sabbath.
Right.
They're picking grains. They think they're working.
Right. The law was you can't work on the Sabbath. So they can't harvest on the Sabbath. Are they harvesting?
Technically.
No. They're picking grains off because they're hungry. So they're walking through the fields and they're picking off some grain to eat it, and then they're going on their way. So if they were harvesting, that would be a bad thing. But they're just eating. And we know that from Leviticus and Deuteronomy that God, I think even Exodus, let's see. Leviticus for sure. We were told by God that the farmers had to leave the outsides of their field unpicked, so that the poor people and the foreigners, as they walked by, they could pick the grains. And that's what the disciples were doing. So Jesus references David when him and his buddies were hungry. They went into the temple and they ate the consecrated bread. Now this was okay because they were on a mission from God. So that he's kind of relating it to his disciples. He was relating them to David's people. They weren't harvesting, they were just eating to feed themselves. And then Jesus hits them right between the eyes in verse 27 and 28. Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son is man, so the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." God gave us the Sabbath to rest. And here, what happened is the Pharisees took one law and made it into many. So we've got a supplement out there called, what is that supplement called? Oh, the 39 Melachot. So read that, and it describes the different type of Sabbath law that are prohibited by the law. Sabbath work prohibited by the law. As you can see, they took God's one commandment not to work on the Sabbath and just blew it out of proportion. But that was the Pharisees.
Is that the 1,613 laws that they came up with?
600 something out of the 10. Yeah, totally ridiculous. But they were more concerned about law than worship. So that's it. We made it through the first 2 chapters of Mark. Like I said, it's action-packed, it's short, but there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. So I think we're going to be relegated to 2 chapters a week in order to do it justice. Any other questions or anything else?
Thanks, we're good.
Good, because I'm tired. All right, guys. Well, thank you. We'll see you next week. We're going to start off again with Lectio Divina at 6 o'clock. And I can't remember what next week's all about.
Hold on.
Christy's going to tell us. Once again, you'll get the email with the reading. And we'll start out with Lectio Divina. Then we'll go into chapters 3 and 4
Oh.
of Mark.
Psalm 1.
Oh, Psalm 1. Psalm 1 is excellent. Psalm 1 tells us you can either be like this or you can be like this. So, good words for next week. So God bless you. Since you're already at home, stay there, be safe. Dr. Randy, are you at home or at church?
At home, sir.
All right. God bless you. Stay safe. I'll see you.
Pastor, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
And Dr. Randy, Gary, the guy in the middle, gives us a lot of our good handouts.
Sunshine that melts all that
And
snow away.
We'll
And
quote out the early Lent service.